Irish women. In the name of the dead generations, the future generations, and especially on behalf of the present generations of solicitors' apprentices, I am here, along with my gallant ally, Erin Vickery, to oppose the motion that 2016 should be the last time Ireland commemorates the Rising. I was struck in listening to the first proposition to Claire's speech that in effect it was time to say goodbye. We've had enough of the Rising. It reminded me of the old drink aware ads, which is, know the one, that's one too many. And that was unrealistic, so they changed it to something that we can actually support, myself and Erin, which is commemorate responsibly. Ladies and gentlemen, myself and Erin have 2 points. The first is, who do you trust to commemorate the past? Because regardless of what first propositions say, Easter 1916, as they've acknowledged, it's lodged in the collective memory of the Irish people, and if the state cedes it, someone else will fill that vacuum. And our second point is that for the state to abdicate its commemoration of 1916, it means that it's saying that Easter Rising is too easy to forget and too simple to ignore. We believe it is too important to forget and too dangerous to ignore. The proposition argument really is that it's too complex, too complicated, too controversial to commemorate. That in effect, after 2016, after doing such a good job, we should simply say enough is enough. Another national asset gussied up for privatisation. Paddy Cosgrave thinks it's outgrown Ireland, but possibly has a future in Bangalore. Dennis O'Brien is going to bid as we speak. And Jerry Adams is already selling tickets for 33 weeks of the Sinn Féin version of the Easter Rising. And they all might be, they all might be good things, because I've been to the website and it's marvellous. I've seen the job that Dennis did in the water meters, they're impeccable. And I've read Jerry Adams' tweets, and they're hilarious. But all of these things are good, but they do not fill what the state can in terms of organising commemoration with the legitimacy and accountability that the state has on behalf of all citizens and all of the nation. Because if the state abdicates its role in commemorating 1916 as the proposition seek it, it is not a neutral act. Because it will result in that vacuum. And we have seen this before, no thank you. We saw it after 1966 when the state said we will not commemorate this anymore and simply closed its eyes to no thank you to what was going on. We actually made it illegal in 1937 and in 1976. And who marched on Easter Monday? It wasn't the cadets in their dress uniforms, but it was often men in balaclavas who we could not hold accountable. Commemoration by the state is different. No, thank you. It chooses to remember our history in a way that is measured and reflective, and be informed by full acknowledgement of the complexity of historical events and their legacy, of the multiple readings of history and of the multiple identities and traditions which are part, no thank you, of the Irish historical experience. How do I know that? Because it's stated right there on Ireland.ie. And I can already hear the proposition argument that, oh, well, you read it on a government website, therefore it must be true. But the mere fact, take Sarah in one moment, but the mere fact that the state puts itself up for such scrutiny, the fact that it can name Senator Manning as the chair of the committee, that our honourable chair would also be on that advisory committee, that it states publicly and openly its aims and its context for that commemoration, means that we as citizens can hold it to account for commemorative successes and commemorative failures, that is accountable to us, and I feel that such scrutiny is important. Sarah, do you not agree?
The Rising itself came from the bottom up, not the top down. Why should commemorations not do the same if we are a true republic?
I think that's a lovely and noble point, but I think that experience suggests something else. Experience suggests that the state can actually commemorate it in a fuller and more comprehensive way. That we can't just result or leave it to chance that from the bottom up will actually take an approach. Because I know as a child that when the teacher leaves the room, he who shouts loudest is heard the most. And I fear for what actually happens when the state leaves the stage, because I don't think that it will be a very positive thing from the bottom up, because we see all too often that there are groups in society that seek to hijack the legacy of 1916 and steal it simply for themselves. To return to my initial point of who do you trust with commemoration of the past, for the reasons that the state has legitimacy and accountability, that is who we feel is suitable to actually commemorate 1916. But to bring on to my second point, no thank you, which is Easter Rising is too important to forget and too dangerous to ignore. For whatever reason, it has become lodged in our collective memory. It is our Bastille and it is our Declaration of Independence rolled into one. The Irish people have accepted it as our foundational event, and nothing that the proposition can bring will really challenge that assertion, or that fact rather, no matter what their assertions are. No, thank you. It's too important because we can be proud and should be proud of the values that it left us. Values of religious and civil liberty, of equal rights and equal opportunities. No, thank you. Of a resolve to pursue the happiness and prosperity of the whole nation. Because those values are still relevant, they still inspire, they're still part of identity. And the fact that proposition opened with the marriage referendum, when those very values of cherishing all the children equally was the catch-call that actually summoned activists to get involved in that campaign, demonstrates that relevance and demonstrates that it still has continued relevance, which the state should be cognizant of. A day of commemoration provides an opportunity to reflect on those values, and we feel that this is important, to check on their continued relevance and their continued application in our society. We feel that this is important, but so too is the fact that the Easter Rising is simply too dangerous to ignore. No, thank you. That violence, victims and militarism are fundamentally a part of the Easter Rising. And as Proposition said, perhaps for too long we ignored that. But in our new commemoration, as we have done in 2016 as we did in 2006, we're finally beginning to deal with a more complicated narrative, a narrative that reflects all those traditions and all those victims, that becomes not about your dead and our dead, but all victims of the legacy of 1916. Ladies and gentlemen, celebration is not triumphalism, and ignorance is not bliss. You won't hear myself and Erin deny that the Easter Rising was violent, but the French Revolution was washed deeply in blood. The US state was founded by war by men who owned slaves. And if you don't think that Bastille Day should be handed simply to the Front National or the 4th of July to the Tea Party, you will see why we want to hold on to 1916. But we don't simply want to commemorate it just for its own sake. We commemorate because there are complex ideas that rise above the sound of cannon fire, the chop of the guillotine, and the cries of the dying. Ideas and events that define our past, affect our present, and inspire our future. Such ideas and events deserve commemoration. The Easter Rising is such an idea and such an event I am proud to oppose.